We are excited to hear from two talented, award-winning broadcasters, each iconic fixtures in the life of radio, television, and the silver screen. John St. Augustine, who graduated in 1992 with a degree from the University Without Walls program, is the author of Every Moment Matters and Living an Uncommon Life. He is an award-winning producer and broadcaster whose credits include The Dr. Oz Show, the Sirius XM satellite radio's Oprah and Friends, and is a proud alumnus with a telling journey about risk-taking that he will share with you tonight. Bill Kurtis is, of course, a legendary broadcaster, anchor, and host of a number of documentaries on PBS, History Channel, and A&E. He served as our commencement speaker in 1979 here at Northeastern, and also came back in 2014 to deliver an address during our alumni reunion called Death by Food, How the American Diet is Making Us Sick. It was a wonderful event. I was there. Kurtis founded Tall Grass Beef Company in 2002 to champion the environment and the health benefits of grass-fed cattle ranching. Together, John and Bill have worked on many endeavors, including their passion for conservation education and the human impact on planet Earth. They are partners on Earth Matters, a series of 1-minute vignettes on environmental issues that airs on WCPT AM and FM in Chicago. After the event, John will be selling merchandise and signing books out in the back, so we do hope that you purchase something and get something signed. Without making you all wait any longer, please join me in welcoming both Bill and John. Thank you.
I don't know whose idea it was to put iconic next to my name. I was here in none of your damn business what year I first came here. But I was here in '79 when he came and did the commencement address, but I wasn't taking classes at that point. I was majoring in minor things, if you get my drift. Glad to be here with you tonight. This is very different for me. I've been on the campus a few times, but not on this end, so none of the buildings look the same. I spent a few hours downstairs in the lunchroom getting my extra credit in, going through the line 3 or 4 times. And all you people that have those sheets that need to be signed that you were actually here, I'll stamp those for you, because I know what that's like. You can leave now if you want, I'll still sign them. It's all good. But really glad to be asked to come back. It's so interesting to me, a full circle moment, driving through, coming off Foster, and the PE building was not there when I first came here in 1977. It was just a big mud field. And I had a 1973 Jeep CJ5 that I made sure I drove through that field every day to class and tore it up, and the cops had chased me, but they couldn't catch me because I had one car here at the time. Who cares? So it was fantastic, and so many great memories. Where the child care building is on the other side of the campus, and that big hole in the ground, those used to be the dorms over there. And they were haunted. We were sure of that. No electricity. After football practice, we had our team meetings in there. It was just ridiculous. So I'm so glad that Northeastern has done so well over the years. As mentioned, I started here first in 1977. It's very interesting about the path. When I was talking with Jessica about, can I do a few minutes on my path to the pinnacle of success? Give me a break. Come on. I've done some great things. A lot of it comes from what I learned here, not so much in the class, which was part of it, but the people and the culture and the support that I got as a student coming out of high school, and then as a returning student, as a veteran, which was really important. I'll get to all that in a second. But 1977, I was pretty well sure I was going to go play for the Kansas Jayhawks as a linebacker, and then the Bears would draft me and I'd make millions of dollars. As you can see, that has not happened. On the very last play of the last game as a senior in high school, they had put this new stuff in called AstroTurf at Hanson Stadium up on Fullerton. It's the devil's grass is what it is. It's like this carpet on the floor here painted green. And I caught my toe caught a seam, and I tore my right knee up, and that was the end of that. So I had 20 college letters that people wanted me to come play football there. It couldn't be for my grades because my best grades in high school were lunch and gym. So it had to be about playing football. And Kansas was number one. Dartmouth, can you imagine that, was number two. And the third place that wanted me to come, full expenses paid, was the Coast Guard Academy in New London, Connecticut. I thought, why the hell would anyone go to the Coast Guard? I'll get to that in a minute. So all those offers were off the table. And Northeastern had a football team. I'm not kidding. And they said, we'll pay a half scholarship if you come play football here. I thought, I could drive here in my Jeep and cut through the parking lot. It'd be great. So I came here in 1977, and just as proof, Chris, you want to put that first slide up? I just want to bring proof that this actually happened. Yeah, that's me. Yeah. Well, they didn't have color film then. So 1977, I think there's a football over in the PE building that says Illini Badger Conference Champions. If there's not, there should be. So we did actually win the conference that year. My first year out of high school in 1977 here, we played. I sacked Dave Craig 3 times before half at Milton College. Milton College doesn't even exist anymore. They tore it down or it went out of business or something like that. But that was a big deal back then for me. Come to find out, Dave Craig played 20 years in the NFL. I played none. I sacked him 3 times. He's like this big. So things don't really work out sometimes the way you think they will. So I just want to bring this photographic proof that I pulled out of some archive somewhere that's in cold storage that I actually played. There was a football team here, and in 1977 we took it all. Can I get a round of applause? Thank you. All right, that's enough. So that was really a very interesting time for me. And in 1979, when my friend came to do the commencement address, I was working part-time at an Osco drugstore at Pulaski and Montrose. You maybe hear I say this a few times tonight. That doesn't exist anymore either. But I was working part-time there, and on January 19th of 1978, going into 79, I got electrocuted. Done. Over and out. I was working on a machine, and the thing backfired, and I got electrocuted. I was done. And what saved me was the pharmacist just happened to stay late that night, and he revived me. And Chicago Fire Department just happened to be driving by that night, and they got me to Swedish Covenant Hospital. And a girl who was my nurse was ahead of me a year in high school, and she was pretty, and she was the best medicine you could ever imagine. But I was in there 6 weeks in Swedish Covenant, and I couldn't write anymore. My right hand was done. So no college. So here is the path for all you students in here who think it's going to go like this. It's like this already. I'm 2 years out of high school, and I don't know whether to wind my watch or, take a walk down the street. Not prepared for all this. They don't teach you this stuff in school. And so I had to make a decision of what I was going to do with my life, and I really didn't know what I was doing besides pulling beer tabs off, which I was really good at that. And I got a call one night in late 1979 from a guy who was a lifeguard at the pool, which I understand you still have, it's like a terrarium at this point. But you have that pool in the other building. And it was a guy who was a lifeguard there, and we called him the Senator for some unknown reason. And I get a call about midnight in 1979 at some point, and he calls me from Kodiak, Alaska. And he said, hey, John, what are you doing? Man, I'm up here, I'm hunting, I'm fishing, I'm having a good time, I get paid. I said, are you like a guide or something? Are you like a wilderness guide? He goes, no, I joined the Coast Guard. Well, maybe I should do that, because I got nothing else to do. And right smack dab at that time was the Iranian hostage thing was going on. Most of you may not know about that, but for all those days, 444 days, the Iranians held hostages. And a lot of guys like me were going to go rescue them. So what am I going to do? Join the Coast Guard, because we can go rescue them in Iran, right? I went down to the recruiting office next day ready to join the Marines, and everybody was out to lunch except the Coast Guard recruiter, so it was fate. I signed on the dotted line. I went to boot camp 6 weeks later. I was in for 4 years active and 2 years reserve. And of all things, I really don't like boats, but I like helicopters. And so I had the chance to fly as air crew in helicopters for 4 years, and it was just an amazing experience to me. But I look at the path that has taken me from the hallowed halls of Northeastern to where I'm at, and so much of it started right here. And so I did my time in the service, and I came back out in 1986. I was ready to go, and something had a couple of U-turns in my life. I was hit by a drunk driver at 80 miles an hour 2 weeks after I got married, and I couldn't work. Can't write, can't work. Might as well go into politics, I think. But anyway, I'm just kidding. Actually, I'm not, but it's a whole other talk I give, and we'll just leave that right there. But I thought maybe I should go back to school. So I came here. I went to get checked out, and as a veteran, at that time, the state still had money. They had a balanced budget in 1988. And I came back to school. And interesting to me, I'm like a straight arrow. I need a foundation that I can go. And interesting enough, I took all the classes that my counselor said, here, take these, because I had, when I left here in 78, I had like Blutarski Animal House grade average, 0.00, never went to class. I'm just being honest with you. I was busy. And, but I came back and they gave me, here, take these classes in 120 credits or whatever it is, and I took exactly what they said. Has anyone ever had to sit through the history of the United States from 1607 to 18 whatever? Boring. 8 o'clock in the morning. Are you kidding me? So everybody's in this guy's class. I'm not going to say his name in case he still works here. And I'm sitting in the front row at 8 o'clock because I've been in the service. I've been through boot camp, man. Come on, let's go. Let's go. He's like, oh, good morning, class. Today, I'm like, are you kidding me? How many weeks of this I got? Started out with 35 people in the class. By the time it was done, there was 4. I was stupid. I didn't know you could drop a class because I'd have been out. So I battled my way through this, and I get to the midterm, and it was an open book test, and I failed. Yeah, that's what I said. What? So I got a tutor at the library, and I'm going to kill this thing now, and it comes to the last question for the whole course, and here's the question. Was the Civil War inevitable? What kind of question is that? It happened, so yeah, it was probably inevitable. I wrote reams of paper. I had visuals. I was going to put on a Confederate Army suit, and role play, whatever it took. I get all the way to the end of the class. I nailed it. I knew I nailed it. And then I got my grades in the mail. Do you know what I got for that course? For 13 weeks or whatever? I got an R. I got an R. Anybody else here have an R? You know what an R is? Registered, never attended. So, that didn't sit real well with me, even though I wasn't paying for it, and I started walking across the old gym. I was going to have a little talk with the prof. Me and him, just a couple of fellas, And this is a guy who every Friday would just talk to the 3 girls up front and tell them, here's your cocktail word for the weekend. There'll be a test Monday. And I didn't attend? Are you kidding me? So I'm walking across the gym, and a friend of mine, some of you might know, named Dan Creeley, who was here since they built the place, he sees me walking across the gym, and he said, all I saw was this big vein sticking out of your neck. And he caught me, went over there before I did bodily harm to this guy. And we had a talk, and he called the guy. And he says, well, did he actually take the class? I'm like, give me the phone. He goes, no, I'll take it. So we finally get this whole thing figured out, and there was some big whatever. And he said, well, okay, I won't fail him. I'll give him a D. Lessons in that, kids. Things aren't always going to go the way you want them to go, no matter how hard you work. And I know that Bill can attest to that. In the business that we're in, it's challenging to say the least, especially with all the technology these days. So I often go back to Professor, I'm not going to say his name in case he's still here, and I think of him, about how much effort I put in and whether people understand or recognize that I even show up when we do these Earth Matters or I go out and do talks or write books or whatever. Because the truth is, even with 100 more people in here, only 1 or 2 of you are actually going to take any value of anything I say anyway. That's the odds. I came here for a couple people, and I'm glad to be here. It's glad to be back, but I've been doing this 25 years. And when I graduated, my degree, even though I hadn't started any of this work or written any books or worked with Dr. Oz or Oprah, all that stuff, was environmental interpretation and communication. Because I started to look in between the lines. I look in between the lines, see? And most people are looking at the headlines. I'm looking for the lifelines. And when you look in between the lines of the stuff that's going on and you're able to extract information, and then you give that information to people, especially in short form, or like he does in documentaries, you'd be amazed what information can lead to transformation. And so that's really what it's all about. That's what I came here tonight to share, was that I'm not kidding about the lunch and gym being some of my best grades. But once you hook into what you're here to do on the planet, things can start happening. But it's the path there is really, I can't say it's always the reward. Paychecks are great too. But the bottom line is, when you're doing what you're supposed to do, you don't spend a whole lot of time in the stuff you're not supposed to do. And when you're not doing that, and you can focus on what you're going to do while you're here, you go from looking at everything under a microscope, which will give you a major headache, and looking at things through a telescope. And when you change your perspective about the challenge that we face, especially environmentally, listen, if they weren't recording this or going to play it out somewhere, I'd be swearing already. Because I grew up, this is how I talk around here. We have serious, serious challenges. I'm not concerned about the planet. I'm concerned about us. I'm concerned about my kids and my grandkids and all the rest of them. I'm concerned about the 5,000 kids today that die because they don't have clean water. And we drink bottles of this stuff like we get it at the gas station. So I can't change all that, but what I can do is take what I've been given and the things that I think are important and do the best I can with them, and then there's a ripple effect that occurs. And if somebody else picks up on it, great. If somebody else picks up on it, great. So while it'd be easy, I could sit here and put up reams of information, as I did once in the old auditorium. I had to give a talk to get my degree, and I had facts and figures and stuff, and there was a book out like 150 Ways to Save the Planet back then, and it was a big bestseller. And inevitably, I'd give all this information out, and people'd say, I don't like any of these things. Got anything else I could do? Find what you're supposed to do. Whatever you're seeking is seeking you. Whatever you're looking for is waiting for you. It's out there, and it's also in here. And so when I finished, I got my degree, and I stood behind the building back there, and I think it's a 150-year-old white oak or something behind there. I knew, even though I grew up in this city and longed for other things in the world, that I was supposed to take my talent and passion for the planet and what goes on here and look at it in a different way and then be able to translate that. And times a million since I graduated here in 92 and came here the first time in 77, the technology is surpassing our humanity. We don't know what to do with it. We're constantly in fight or flight. How are we going to get anything done if we're always pushing on each other? So I like to step back and say, in 1 minute, can I use his voice with my research and produce something and put it out and get it to 1 million people in a minute and make it look like and sound like it's important? So you want to hear some of this? This is what we've been doing for the last 3 years. So all I got to do is use the mouse, right, to the next thing here? Let's see how good I'm in technology. How do I hit play? Okay. I've been in radio 25 years. I don't know nothing. Where's it at? There we go. Here we go.
From the surface, they look clean enough, the rivers that run through the cities and towns of America. But a recent study by the EPA shows that high levels of phosphorus and nitrogen are putting the 1.2 million miles of streams and rivers surveyed under stress. The past 44 years have brought stricter regulations on what corporations can dump into our waterways. But the latest EPA study shows that 55% of the streams and rivers surveyed are not suitable for aquatic life, mostly due to fertilizer runoff, rendering these arteries of Earth sterile. You can do your part by using organic fertilizers on your lawn and in the garden, because the old adage that what goes around comes around isn't just a cliche. It's a way of life or death, especially when it comes to our water supply. I'm Bill Curtis with Earth Matters.
In 1 minute, did you learn something? Did you feel something? Did you see something or hear something? In 59:50, we have 59 seconds and 0.50 to get this done because the radio the way it works. So the great challenge was, how do we do this? The delivery system's there, but how do you take reams of information and distill it down? So for every 1 minute that you see, it would take me 4 or 5 hours to find the information, to validate it. What a concept. Real news. Go to sources, validate those sources. I can't have his voice on the radio with something that's not correct. I mean, I know people make money doing that, but it ain't going to be me, right? So taking those things and moving them around, it's so interesting to think that we're standing here tonight, because it was in 2009, I was at the Oprah radio channel doing my show and Dr. Oz's and all that, and Bill came in to do either mine or Oz's show about tall grass beef. I'm sitting at my desk. This is how it works for me. I hope, and I'm sure for you, if you get quiet, you can figure this out. I'm sitting there, and I've been thinking about this stuff. How do I do this? How do I do this? When you know the why, the how shows up. Our lives, we spend too much time in how we're going to do things as opposed to why. So when you know the why, the how eventually shows up. He's on his way from Curtis, which to Harpo was 10-minute drive. In the time he called and said he's on his way, I sat at my desk and I wrote 5 of these scripts. I don't know where they came from. They came from they showed up. He walks and I said, here, go read these. He goes in and does the voice of God. Hello, I'm Bill Curtis. And he does all that. And I put him in storage in the vault. And I forgot about him for 3 years. And I had already left there. My contract was over. And I get a call from my production guy one day who's still there. And he goes, hey, what do you want me to do these things that Bill did? I'm like, what are you talking about? I totally forgot. And he played it for me. And he had actually put production on them. So some of the background you hear, some of these are a little bit older, but he had done all that. He goes, these are great. And I listen. I go, yeah, they are. And next thing I know, we're off to the races 300 episodes later. Next slide. This one's really interesting to me. You ever see the movie Jurassic Park? And the line where he says, just because you can make dinosaurs doesn't mean you should. Well, just because something's good in nature doesn't mean we should be inhaling and consuming it because we can. Take a listen. Not playing, fellas. If I knew the voice thing, I would do it. Can you guys hit it from back there? Technology. Anyway, it was really good. Nothing? So does that mean we're done with all of them? Let me try and go to the next one. So what this was about was krill. It's this little tiny organism. Hey, I'll be back here. I'll be here all week. Eat the liver. It's a little tiny organism, about this big. That's why they call it la petite. Anyway, so krill is almost been eradicated in the oceans of the world because of climate change. And the ice flows are not able to sustain them, so all the big animals that eat the krill, everything has a ripple effect to it. Well, guess what else krill's good for? Apparently, if you have achy knees, you can go to GNC and buy krill oil, like a whale would eat it or something. So it's all been distilled down. We've lost 90% of the krill on the planet. And so they're trying to harvest it, and when they harvest it, they don't put it back in the water. They sell it for chicken feed. So, when humans get a hold of stuff, I always have a difficult time because people, you read the Bible and it says, man was given dominion over all things. Doesn't mean you run it into the ground. All right, let's try another one. Chris, you back there? See if this works. I spent hours on this. What's going on, fellas? I guess I'll be winging it. You're fired. You'll never work for Curtis Productions again. All right, so I'll work with these. So this one, I'm just going to keep going because we're on a time thing. This is called The Stain. Those are not my hands. And The Stain was about the Exxon Valdez. And if you remember, it ran aground back in the 80s. And the reason that it had such a problem was not just the oil, was that the cost factor. The cost factor is that Exxon thought it would be cheaper not to have double-hulled oiled ships. It would have been $1,000 or $10,000 or some minimal amount to have double-hulled ships. So instead of that, they spent billions of dollars to clean up and pay people off. So it's that corporate mentality. The great challenge I have with thinking that private sector is going to get it right is because they don't, because they're human. I was watching a show a couple years ago, and T. Boone Pickens, the oil guy, was on, and there had been an oil spill in Arkansas under a neighborhood. It came up through people, they had to all move, 35 houses. He said, well, it's just a minor spill, nothing to worry about. Well, if you live there, it's not a minor spill. So this whole thing about the Exxon Valdez was they're still coming up through the ground. There are still holes 3 and 4 feet deep with oil that's been sitting there for years. You light a match, you can start a fire. Somebody's going to try this one. If you can hit it, just go ahead. I guess I'm going to narrate. You should be narrating me. You have the voice. Oh, here we go.
The legend of Johnny Appleseed is well known in the United States, but there is a living legend that is changing the landscape of India. In 1979, massive floods washed across India, and 16-year-old Jadave Payeng was walking on a sandbar near his home when he came across 16 dead snakes that had died in the heat as the ground cover and trees had been swept away. Jadave decided to start planting seeds in the barren ground, against the advice of forestry experts who said nothing would ever grow there again. 35 years later, those few seeds have become a 1,360-acre rainforest, complete with rhinos, apes, elephants, and big cats. When it comes to Earth matters, one person can make a world of difference. I'm Bill Curtis.
Isn't that amazing? All the experts said no way. He didn't listen, and action is everything. So if you can click him from back there, just let him run. I'll get a load of this one.
He has the power of the papacy, and millions of Catholics follow him. But not everyone thinks the Pope is in the right direction on climate change. Pope Francis has made it clear that he feels strongly humans need to have reverence for God's creation and take responsibility for the role we play in climate change. For the most part, there's been little controversy in the Holy Father's remarks. But now as he prepares to address our Congress at the invite of Speaker Boehner, some conservatives feel that the Pope has been misled by what has been called an unscientific agenda by the Heartland Institute, a conservative think tank partly funded by the billionaire Koch brothers, who oppose climate policy. With 30% of the Congress proclaimed Catholics, what will the response from Republicans be when Pope Francis, who took his name from St. Francis, the patron saint of animals and the earth, tells them they must act on climate change? I'm Bill Curtis for Earth Matters.
Yeah, you're going to argue with the Pope? Good luck. His boss is bigger than your boss. Just keep running through.
The 2011 earthquake and tsunami badly damaged the reactor cores at the Fukushima nuclear plant in Japan, and the toxic leak is getting worse. Radiation from the leaking nuclear core in Fukushima has increased 18-fold in just 1 month. Radiation around the site is at 1,800 millisieverts per hour, a level that Reuters says is enough to kill an exposed person in 4 hours. Radioactive wastewater has been pouring into the Pacific, creating the worst nuclear disaster since Chernobyl. In an attempt to stop the leak, officials are going to create an ice wall that will freeze the soil and hopefully prevent any more groundwater leakage. It's a temporary solution that will cost upwards of $500 million. If it doesn't work, the cost could be much more. I'm Bill Curtis, and Earth Matters.
So, here's the thing about humans. We've been around on the planet about, depending on who you talk to, about 145,000 years. The planet, however, is 4.65 billion years old, depending how you talk to. And if you condense those numbers down into a definitive piece in one day, so the 4.65 billion years is 1 day of the planet, our 140,000 years out of that 24 hours is 3 seconds. 4.65 billion years old, no humans for most of it. And we have been in a relative space 3 seconds out of a 24-hour day if you measure it that way. And we know what's going on. I'm astounded at the stuff that happens and the cycles that we continually go through. We're the only species on the planet, folks, that intentionally and consciously alters its environment for the worse. And we think it's for the better because there's profit to be made. In 1907, one of my guys, Teddy Roosevelt, had to take an executive action to stop them for trying to do ore mining in the Grand Canyon. Or they would have done it. And so here we are 100 and some odd years later, and they're still at it. And so I see these things getting repeated and repeated and repeated. And as I said earlier, I'm not that concerned about this rock that floats in space and has all these other systems going on. In so many ways, we're just passengers. If we're lucky, the average lifespan in this room is 77 and a half. That's mid-age for a land tortoise. But we got it all figured out. So I don't talk about science anymore. Arguing with someone about climate change is like trying to argue with an alcoholic who says it's not his problem. It's crap. And so I don't care how many, that's long gone. When I did this 25 years ago in that other room and I gave this presentation, I had all these information, people said I need something different. I realized right then and there that if you don't get people emotionally connected to their environment, they don't care. There was a time people threw stuff out the window in the street because they thought it was okay. My dad used to put his car up on Berto Avenue, put it up on the curb, open the oil plug and drain into the sewer. He didn't think it was wrong. Well, Dad, where do you think that goes? Well, in the sewer. Well, yeah, I get that. Then where does it go? I don't know. In the water? Yeah, in the water. Well, they clean it, right? Sure. How many dads do you think are doing this? Like 5 million? So it's about a consciousness shift. And so all these that I've written and these little videos that I put together, all the episodes that people hear on the radio is to get them to think and not react, but learn how to respond. There's a huge difference in reacting and responding. What's going on with the environment is about us. My Native American friends taught me some great lessons, and the biggest one is this. There are 5 things. There's the earth itself, and there's all the plant life, which are the trees and all the green things, and then you got all the animals, all that swim, crawls, walks, and flies. Then you got all the water that's around it, and then you got us. We're the pinky on the end. Here's the deal, kids. The first 4 don't need us. They were here before us. They don't care if we're here or not. We cannot live without a single other piece. And we mess with it. Can you run the next one? Oh boy.
They are among the oldest animals on Earth and have the reputation for being one of the deadliest. But when it comes to sharks, man is the predator. Recently, a 1,323-pound mako shark was caught off the coast of California, the largest shark to be caught on a rod and reel. Each year, approximately 100 million sharks are taken from the sea, mostly for their fins. The act of finning is a brutal practice that uses only the fins, cut off while the shark is alive, and then the fish is dumped overboard, where it slowly sinks and suffocates. Removing that many sharks from the food chain can have dire consequences in the long term. These magnificent creatures have been on Earth for over 300 million years, but now their fate is uncertain. I'm Bill Curtis with Earth Matters.
It doesn't take much to torque my bolts. But if you're going to tell me there's a group of humans that need to do 3 things, cut fins off sharks to have soup, I'm saying, you never heard of Campbell's? Really? You don't have Campbell's soup over there? That's the first one. The second one I didn't have time to put in this stack was about the manta ray. You know what a manta ray is? We call them the angels of the ocean. They only have pups every 3 to 5 years, so their replication rate is very slow. They're running out of sharks, so somebody said, hey, here's some medicinal value in the air-breathing lung system of the manta ray. So they're taking them out at the rate of 30 million a year out of the ocean. They disregard the whole carcass and take this breathing apparatus out and sell it as medicine. I'm thinking, you never heard of Tylenol? It's a societal thing, and here's the one that I did a whole week on this. You heard of Shark Week? I did Rhino Week. because there's nothing that bends my bamboo more than what's going on with rhinos and the big animals on the plains. There's no medicinal value whatsoever in a rhino horn. You might as well eat your own fingernail. Nothing. Zero. And they're almost gone because there's a belief that if you do this, you get all these great medicinal things and all the rest of it. It's not true. It's not even close to true. You want fake news? That's fake news. And so this beast that's been on for 250 million years is coming to the end of its run because of people. So Bill's going to talk more about the climate change and some of these other things. To me, that's all connected. It isn't like, oh, there's no climate change because it's cold today. All the things we do to mess with the environment, that all plays a role in it. Everything is connected. John Muir said, if you spend enough time in nature, you find out if you pull at one thing, it's connected to everything else. We don't get that. You want to run the next one back there? Oh, this is good. This is good. Very positive.
In 2006, a corner on South Wood Street in Chicago looked like nothing more than a vacant lot with weeds. But two men saw something very different. Harry Rhodes and Orrin Williams of Growing Home, a nonprofit that uses organic farming to provide job training for hard-to-employ individuals, saw not just an empty lot, but rather an urban organic farm that could give them a chance to connect with the land. We had this idea that getting our hands dirty and seeing something grow could really help change people, Rhodes says. Growing Home has given those who have been homeless or incarcerated a renewed sense of purpose by simply learning to plant a seed in the ground and in themselves, in what used to be a vacant lot. I'm Bill Curtis with Earth Matters.
Here's the big gimme in this one. That guy, Orrin Williams, was here when I was here in 77. He was a student. I think he graduated like 6 times. He had more degrees than a thermometer, this guy. And look what he's been doing. I didn't even notice that till I wrote that 3 years ago. And I found Orrin Williams, and he's still at it. Hey, what's up? I'm just doing my thing. Yeah, he's doing his thing all right. That's for sure. Want to run the next one?
There are many different kinds of invasive species that threaten life in the waterways of America. But recently, a new man-made scourge has surfaced. Zebra mussels have decimated the waters of the Great Lakes, consuming plankton at such a high rate that actually threatens the fish population in that area. But who knew that simply washing your face or hands, or even brushing your teeth, would put a substance into the water that never goes away? Researchers have discovered vast amounts of plastic microbeads, the abrasive particles that scrub away dirt and grime, and then get washed down the drain, and eventually end up in the water system. The beads don't dissolve. The best way you can help to keep polyethylene out of the water is to simply use a good biodegradable soap. I'm Bill Curtis, and Earth Matters.
This is, to me, our big aha. Could you put that next screen up and just leave it up? You'll see what I got a little chronology here. The first episode of Earth Matters regarding the beads aired April of 2013, almost 4 years ago, right? So it reached about a little over 1 million people, played during the week. It airs 2 times a day and reached a bunch of people online, all that kind of stuff. So apparently, word spread. We saw a little tiny article in the Tribune and then in Reuters, and I picked up on it. We expanded it. And when he puts his voice on it, you put all the production on it, you drive it into your car, go, what was that? And then you hear it over and over again. Repetition is everything. So State Senator Heather Steens heard that and co-sponsors a bill to ban the polyethylene beads in Illinois. Pat Quinn signed it in June of 14, about a year later. The momentum keeps building. In December of 2015, Obama signed a law banning the bead in the USA. By the end of 2017, the UK will have followed suit. All because somebody did a little digging and we used the media in a way to uplift, inform, entertain, and inspire. The best part of this is Bill's at this event in 2013, late 2013, and he calls me and he goes, you're not going to believe this. Somebody, wherever he was speaking, Granger or wherever it was at, before he gets introduced, the assistant to the president comes over and goes, "Oh, Mr. Curtis, I love those those earth manners you do. And I heard the one about the microbeads, and I'm not using anymore. I'm just using soap. You know, like we started with when we were kids, just soap. You don't need scrubbing bubble beads to do it." The ripple effect takes place when you stand in what you can do with things and you move it forward. And the last one, you want to hit it before I introduce Mr. Curtis?
There are at least 20,000 known species of bees in the world. But it's what we don't know about this amazing insect that might be one of the biggest challenges we face with regard to the environment in the next 20 years. A Cornell University study estimates that honeybees annually pollinate $14 billion worth of seeds and crops in the United States. Essentially, if honeybees disappear, they could take most of our insect-pollinated plants with them. The past 6 years have brought about a condition called CCD, or colony collapse disorder, an acceleration in the annual die-off of bees that some experts believe has to do with sprayed-on pesticides. While there are big problems when it comes to long-term sustainability, it might just turn out that the bee contains our greatest chance for survival. I'm Bill Curtis with Earth Matters.
You don't need a degree to learn that. Without further delay, my friend, Bill Curtis.
We're going to check it out for a minute or so. So before I begin, please bear with me. I'd try to film, but it would be all fake.
Can I do something real quick while they're getting it together? I was able to come back and go to school here because I'm a veteran, and they paid for it. Bill's a United States Marine Corps veteran. Hoorah. Hoorah. But it gets better. Sitting in this row right here is a gentleman, you've all heard of Iwo Jima in your history books. He was there. So Woody, would you please stand up? United States Marines, Iwo Jima, Saipan. Okay, I'm killing time.
Yeah, he was not only on Iwo Jima, he was on Saipan and Tinian, which led up to Okinawa, and they were planning to invade Japan. But first they had to take those islands to bring in the heavy bombers to get there. The Marines lost 5,000 to 6,000 men on the first day invading Iwo Jima. It was probably the bloodiest of the Pacific Wars. My dad was in the Marines, and I grew up until I was 13 on Marine bases. And so we didn't play with the plastic toys because everybody else had fathers in the Marine Corps. We played with M1s. They would take the firing pin out. We could disassemble and assemble an M1 by the time we were 5. So, and we would have our canteens and our web belts and our uniforms, and we would divide up. And we thought that we were really hot stuff. But those were the days when we didn't have to worry about climate change. And now it's the number one issue that is facing us, and we are rolling back all the advances that we have made in 30 years because of a very small group that believes that carbon dioxide specifically does not contribute to global climate change. Let me try and start here, and we'll see. There was once a town in the heart of America where all life seemed to be in harmony with its surroundings. The town lay in the midst of a checkerboard of prosperous farms, with fields of grain and hillsides of orchards where white clouds of bloom drifted above the green land. In autumn, oak and maple and birch set up a blaze of color that flamed and flickered across a backdrop of pines. Even in winter, the roadsides were places of beauty, where countless birds came to feed on the berries and on the seed heads of the dried weeds rising above the snow. And then, one spring, things began to change. And I will show you if... there. A strange blight crept over the area, and everything was different. Some evil spell had settled in on the community. Mysterious maladies swept the flocks of chickens, and the cattle and sheep sickened and died. Everywhere was the shadow of death. The farmers told of much illness among the families. The birds, where had they gone? The feeding stations in the backyards were deserted. The few birds to be seen anywhere could not fly. It was a spring without voices. In the mornings, there was now no sound. Only silence lay over the fields and woods and marshes. No witchcraft, no enemy action had snuffed out life in this stricken world. The people had done it themselves. The New Yorker magazine published the first excerpt from Rachel Carson's book, Silent Spring, from which I quote, in June of 1962. Now, almost 55 years later, and 2 million books published, with climate change, pesticide poisoning, and new diseases, I find enough reasons to believe those fictional images are coming true. That's what I'm going to talk about and offer a few natural ways to actually solve climate change. Although I've been on the journalistic beat for about 55 years, and specifically on environmental stories since Al Gore invented the internet, I just recently decided to become directly involved. About 4 years ago, I bought 3 beehives. I came to believe that bees are nature's miracle. Bees working all day to suck nectar from blossoms, collecting pollen all over its body, attracted by the carefully evolved colors in nature's grand illusion, and symbiotically letting them pollinate as they repeat their ritual across the garden. Sort of like a Division Street bar, creating the atmosphere for Northeast Illinois student bees to rub together and pollinate. Once in the hive, which is organized with perfection, the nectar and pollen comes together to feed the queen and larvae, 2,000 of which she lays every day. I became interested in bees, and despite a couple of stings, I took 100 pounds of honey every year, bottled it in my little bear-shaped bottles, and proudly gave it away. Can we change the slide? And then, like Rachel Carson, I checked on my hives after our last cold snap. When I opened the top, I could see nothing. There was no buzz of 10,000 bees making honey, collecting the pollen from echinacea like these, no guard bees flying at me, no bees on sugar and protein patties that I had placed to get them through the winter. The bees were gone. I could find no dead bees, no trace of a flight, no DNA from an intruder. The entire hive, a swarm, had just disappeared. I knew of colony collapse disorder. I knew that predictions put the loss this year at 60% in the United States, up from 45% last year. But I thought it couldn't happen to me. I love my bees. They love me. So I went to the books, which means I went to Google. I learned about a parasite, a mite that appeared in the South 30 years ago and rode the bees north, called the Varroa mite. I learned that there is a virus now affecting the navigation system of bees, throwing them off and weakening their immune system. I learned that shifting agricultural practices like GMOs might be throwing the bees off. The herbicide or pesticide is systemic and comes up in the plant and picked up by the bees and carried back to the hive. But most disturbing was a statistic that tracked the increase in carbon dioxide in the atmosphere over the last 50 years from around 275 parts per million to 400 parts per million today, a level that many scientists warn was the tipping point when Earth begins to to restructure her atmosphere. That's a scary thought at the base of global climate change. And with that increase in carbon, there was a parallel track downward in protein, one going up, protein inside going down. So flowers in pastures and gardens might grow more profusely with carbon, but they don't have enough protein and hence enough nutrition to support bees through the winter. You might be tempted to jump to a conclusion that, something must be wrong with our agricultural system. At a meeting that we held for beekeepers several weeks ago, 4 professors and farmers recommended protein supplements now be fed all year round to bees. More protein supplements the nutrition for bees, strengthens their immune system, and helps them live longer and produce more honey. I also found a Dr. Jonathan Lundgren, who used to work for the USA, but left or was fired because he wouldn't be censored for talking about neonicotinoids, an ingredient inside the pesticide that's about 1,000 times more powerful than DDT, that caused Rachel Carson to write her book. He believes the bees pick the chemical up at the flower, take it back to the hive, and infect the whole hive with a poison, hence a colony collapse. He's become a whistleblower. I like whistleblowers. They are passionate and truthful, and they sacrifice money and career to get the word out about the danger they believe is so important, someone must protect us. I know about them because I broke the Agent Orange story in 1978 with a whistleblower. In Agent Orange, the issue was a chemical used as a defoliant to take the leaves off the trees around fire bases so U.S. troops would have a clear field of fire. The chemical was an herbicide that had been used by farmers for 40 years, apparently without harm to humans. But when the Pentagon ordered more at weapon strength, it created more heat in the process, which in turn created a side product called dioxin, the most toxic substance made by man. We sprayed it on our own soldiers and Marines, and they are still reporting health problems today. It's a problem, Woody, that you did not have at World War II. I try to not pay much attention to the visuals because we've gone rogue with our technical there, but at least I kind of keeps you interested. But I've got 2 streams of messages coming out, so keep that image in mind when I get to it. Are the neonicotinoids, in our herbicide that we use on our crops and gardens, the dioxin of modern agriculture? I'll leave that to you to figure out. Dr. Lundgren left the USDA because he couldn't speak about neonicotinoids in his job. But on the outside, he has built his own research laboratory and is giving speeches about bees being the canary in the coal mine. And just an aside for you conspiracy lovers, he and the other farmers believe that the chemical companies would like us to believe that the mite and the virus are the cause of the colony collapse disorder, so the neonics chemical herbicide can fly under the radar and continue sales. It's a typical corporate strategy. We picked it up in the tobacco fight and then in the oil fight. Deny, find research that supports their side, and then fund that research with a lot of money and leak it to the press. Oh, and those pesky whistleblowers like Rachel Carson and Dr. Lundgren. Well, we'll try to keep quiet about them. Oh, you thought, great, another Earth Day story about flowers and butterflies. What's the answer? Dr. Lundgren believes we have to change our chemical system of agriculture. There are farmers who get it. They're using no-till cultivation to avoid turning the soil over and disturbing the organisms within it. And they grow crops without chemical weed control. What would happen if we returned Illinois to a real prairie state? The tall grasses and the wild flowers stretching as far as you could see. It's not an easy answer, but I can help because coming up in some of the order of pictures, you will see pictures by a man named Mike McDonald who took photographs of native prairie. I thought, well, I've seen a prairie or two, and if it's anything like the stretch between Chicago and Springfield, it is really boring. And then I saw his pictures, and I was transported into the future by way of the past. It's what the tallgrass prairie of Illinois looked like when the first Europeans were here, and what it can look like if you either plan for a hike in the spring or just happen to be lucky during a walk in the woods. I've got them down here, yeah, that's right, and they're really pretty, I can see them. Every one of these photographs was taken in a forest preserve around Chicago. A lot of people are surprised to learn that the tallgrass prairie starts right here. It once covered 170 million acres and provided the pasture for the buffalo that numbered about 60 million and roamed at will. It was probably the largest mammal herd anywhere. They helped create the prairie. Every time they roamed through, thousands at a time, they ate and trampled the grasses and right down into the dust. What a trail they left. Some writers told of being stopped for 5 days heading west while one herd crossed the railroad tracks. And then, when the buffalo weren't streaming and eating the grasses, fire periodically swept the plains. I named my ranch in Kansas the Red Buffalo Ranch, after the Osage Indian term that meant wildfire sweeping a red buffalo across the plains. Those were my buffalo. I took them this last week to show you. When the wind is driving it, you can't outrun a red buffalo fire, as a young couple found out in western Kansas a month ago. They died. A third element swept the ground clean of grass, drought. You could count on it, and it killed all the plants above the ground. Hence, the Dust Bowl and migration of farmers in Texas, Oklahoma, and western Kansas to California, where they became movie stars and created smog. We had the one thing that wouldn't let us become a desert: water. In Chicago, it's 36 inches of rain a year, perfect for prairie. But how would the plants and grass survive the 3 apocalyptic disasters? They went underground. It's not easy to think that a plant produces a flower this beautiful, but it does, and it's just the tip of the iceberg. Underneath the surface, and I mean really underground, there is a subterranean world that holds the key to fighting climate change. By going 10 to 15 feet underground, they get out of the way of the buffalo and fire and drought to find water that deep. These are native plants that evolved with the prairie. To give you an idea of how deep, my good friend Jim Richardson, a photographer with National Geographic, took a bunch of photographs. Now, my tech crew's back there. I've got the pictures on my monitor down here, but not up there. Now, I've got some really good ones of these native plants, and they look like indigo blue. Could you hit another one? This is Culver's root in the prairie behind my house. Culver's root being native, it's a medicinal plant, so regarded by the Indians. Let's hit again. Here's the attraction for monarch butterflies. The bees and the butterflies just love it, except monarch butterflies are declining in population, so we want to keep an eye out for them. Caused, we think, by Roundup. When Roundup killed these plants, the butterflies don't have a place to land and feed on their way to Mexico. Let's change it again, because you were doing real good out there. This is a native plant. The man is 6 feet tall. You have a combination of 3 natives. You have a big blue stem, a compass plant, and switchgrass, all natives that developed in the prairie in the wild. One more. The compass plant here is laid out. Above the ground, it's about 8 feet. And so strong, the pioneers would tie leather thongs to the top stem to mark the trail for wagons coming behind them. But I want to concentrate on this next slide. What the compass extends under the soil. It helps build the soil. 1/3 of the roots die at the end of the growing season. The dead roots decay into organic matter, becoming natural compost, adding to the fertility and water-holding capacity of the soil. The root system is like a giant sponge. End to end, they would extend for miles. But wait, there's more, as they say on television. Let's change. This is where the sod houses come from, because those roots hold the sod together. It's a kind of exoskeleton that supports root systems, next slide, that look so deep. Switchgrass, little blue stem, down around 6 feet, American beach grass, 9 feet for the switchgrass, compass 10 to 15, and big blue stem. These are filled with tiny organisms that are all competing for nutrients in the soil, the water, eating other organisms, and in their symbiotic relationship with the plant, they eat carbon that is used as fuel for the plant to run its energy system. Change, receiving sunlight in its leaves, turning it into sugar, which causes it to grow. This is the prairie dock. That's a tropical-sized leaf. It sends stems up that are 10 feet tall. It is a native plant, and it too grows profusely around Chicago, but goes down 10 to 15 feet with its roots. What carbon isn't used by drawing it in from the sun and the atmosphere goes into storage underground. But more important than just roots is what they support, and those are the organisms. Let's change. For our visual learners, there are more organisms in a handful of dirt than there are people in the United States. I wanted to be visual. All eating carbon. It makes the prairie native plants the largest ecosystem outside of the Brazilian rainforest, with more species and more importance. Here's the takeaway. And here's the takeaway from my reporter from the newspaper, from school. If we managed the grasslands of the world properly, we could reduce the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere by 3% in 5 years. But we have a head start. There are 4 large grasslands around the world in addition to our Great Plains of America. Change. First of all, the Serengeti. Before we get to the Serengeti, this is a really interesting cluster because you have bee balm, the purple, you have blazing star, which is the vertical, and the unusual alien-looking ball cluster on top of the large stem is snakeroot or rattlesnake master. They are all native plants. It, of course, was used against snake bites by the Indians. Let's change. The Serengeti of Africa, the steppe of Russia, especially in the Ukraine, is one of the great grasslands. That's why everybody wants it, because they do what we do, which is plow it up. The pampas of Argentina, animals, climate, and the availability of water help create these grasslands. But for those who love French endings, after I've given you the answer to how we can contribute to saving ourselves, we have a sad ending that brings us back to reality. Even though the prairie grasslands could save us from climate change, in Illinois, we have destroyed all but 0.1% of our native prairies. We've plowed them up, and worse. There is research being done at the other university here in Illinois to measure the effect of year after year of using nitrogen fertilizer on Illinois cornfields. Let's change. 150 pounds are spread over every acre of cornfield prior to planting. The government pays a corn farmer to do that, pays it. It's a subsidy, left over from the Depression days when Roosevelt was trying to save the family farm by propping up the corn market. Without fertilizer, The continuous planting can suck the nutrients from the soil. By adding fertilizer, production soars, but there is a price to pay. Change. Richard Hansen of the University of Illinois has found that the fertilizer seeps down about 5 feet into the soil and kills all the wonderful microorganisms that I just showed you that give that soil its nutrition, that gives us our safety net for maintaining a stable atmosphere of taking in carbon and giving back oxygen, which means that we are growing corn on 1 million acres across the state in a chemical petri jar. That truly is a Rachel Carson spring that is silent. It can be healed, but it will take 5 to 10 years to rejuvenate the soil without chemicals and without crops. Ironically, there was a government program until corn prices got so high when ethanol began taking 50% of the corn supply. Corn went from $2 a bushel to $8 a bushel. Farmers said, to hell with conservation, I can make a lot more money on the open market. So they planted every front yard and field that they could find. If you drove to Springfield, you could see it. The prices come down in the last year, but the damage was done. The conservation program is a shambles. Let's change. The language I used suggesting that grasslands could be an answer to climate change emphasized if grasslands of the world are properly managed with continuous research, which means allowing native plants to retake the prairie so they can absorb more carbon dioxide. It can work. Remember when farmers would say, you know what the government wants us to do now? They're paying us not to plant crops. It just sounded so wrong. How stupid. Well, stupid is destroying our soil with chemicals to plant corn that humans can't even eat. Most of our Illinois corn is GMO engineered as feed only for cattle. Now you know, setting aside land to let it rest and restore itself is exactly what should happen. Let's change. There's more to Earth Day than having a vegan burger. Educate yourself on some of the ideas that I've given you today. I would love that. Build an argument. And then, you really want to make something happen? Contact Senator Dick Durbin and your local politicians. Tell them I sent you. You may shake your head and feel frustrated, but you shouldn't. In 50 years, I've learned that protests work. Letters to your congressman work. That's how they get information and learn. And your vote works. It's a quid pro quo. Could we change one more? As for the prairie, in my home state of Kansas, let's change again. We had a columnist who was named Zula Bennington Green who said it best. You are flatlanders. You are prairie people, whether you like it or not. The prairie that starts here doesn't end until it reaches the middle of Kansas. It goes south into Oklahoma, a little bit into Texas, north into Canada, 170 million acres. She described it as, the prairie is not the gorgeous woman you dreamed would someday be yours, but she is mystery and tenderness and strength and rapture. And suddenly you know that this is what you wanted all your life. Do it.